Hi, welcome to HeKate's Crossing. Okay, after watching Mindful Tarot, Esther, and she talked about a sense of intuition, etc. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about her video. I will put the link down below. But it made me think about the structure of tarot and what it sort of means to me personally, and how I sort of began this journey. I'll talk into a little bit more later, but just to start with. Now, for me personally, there are three main systems of tarot that I've sort of worked with on different levels in different ways. For me, the best way to work with a Tarot de Marseille type deck is, for me, having set meanings for each of the major arcana, and then going through and using numerology, okay, using numbers, meaning of numbers, plus the meaning of the suit to get a deeper meaning of the cards. And then, depending on the context of the question, the layout used, looking at the way the card's laid out, maybe a colour, depending on which type of Marseille type styled deck I use. This is the Spanish tarot. You could use the ancient Italian, of course. You could use a traditional Tarot de Marseille, or for me it was Visconti Sforza. Maybe something of that manner may give you, in working with the numerology and the suits for the tarot, and then using set meanings, very quick short meanings in regards to each of the major arcana. Court cards, of course, looking at the people in some way, maybe their essence in some way, gives you a bit more of a description, etc. So yeah, really I feel like, for me, Tarot de Marseille styled decks that have pip minors are very much about numerology and suit representations. Okay, so then we go into the Rider-Waite Smith, Waite Smith, Rider-Waite type decks. I mean, there's lots of combinations of those. Of course, this is the Smith-Waite borderless version, and so for me, the images give a little bit more in their set meanings, set keywords. Court cards, again, you get that essence of the court card, etc. So that for me is the images then tell a little bit more in regards to set meanings that I have within the cards. Okay, so very structured in their meanings. They can be very structured, and then depending on their layout, the context of the question, the spread used, the surrounding cards can change the meanings slightly, card combinations, etc. So that's another exploration, of course. And then you go into Thoth, however you choose to spell it, to say it. Now, remembering that there again you've got the original, very similar to the Marseille, as in the Justice type card is 8, and the Strength or Lust in this case is 11. Thoth cards, again, they have their own set meanings for the cards, and you'll find the minor cards will have sort of keywords on the bottom, but they're very different than the Rider-Waite Smith type meanings in some way, or the titles seem different. They feel different. It gives you a different energy. it's definitely a different type of reading when you're reading with this type of deck. Okay, I've got a smaller deck that I normally use, but just want to sort of show you with the larger pictures. So that's basically the 3 type of decks. Now you'll get lots of decks that follow their own system, that uses a combination, that's quite different and quite unique. And that again is using, so what you can do is go through and learn the structured meaning of those decks. Or go through and read and understand where the author's coming from the imagery. And then once you've done that, then you can start sort of working on your own development within the deck. Now, my first deck I actually started working with, I started reading with, using, was the Native American Tarot by Magda Gonzalez. Again, keywords at the bottom, again, very different than Waite Smith, very different than the Tarot de Marseille type of decks. There is sort of feels like a very thought under a basis to this deck in many ways. So I have sort of, to start with, I was reading with this deck and reading really, really comfortable, and I come back to it and I have to sort of reprogram myself to move away from the Waite Smith messages in some way, but occasionally I find intuitively the messages do sort of come through with that understanding of Waite Smith at the same time. So it's sort of it has turned into a bit of a mixture when reading, is that I end up sort of combining all 3, intuitively knowing when to do that. So that for me was my first deck that I worked with. It was a deck that I felt very drawn to image as well. Like, I find intuitively the images sort of come up, something from the deck will sort of stand out. And from my own understanding, my own experiences with using tarot on many levels, the messages do come through intuitively in a way. So intuitive for me comes through by understanding tarot as the different systems. So you have like the romantic tarot. So we're talking about relationships. So when you're looking at each card, you're thinking about the relationship that people have. So that intuitively, you're looking at the imagery and you're thinking, now how does that connect to the client? So from your own understanding of tarot, okay, looking at the images, what is the story of the image telling you, and your own experiences, intuitive messages do come through. And this could be things that you think, how do I know that? But it's just stuff that's coming into your mind, coming into your thoughts. Maybe it's something you see, or you smell, or you taste, or you feel emotionally, seems to resonate. So looking at this, the images is so important, but you've got to have an understanding of the very basis of tarot. I'm not saying get into like, you don't have to study huge amounts, but I have found studying the tarot on many levels has definitely improved my readings in many ways, and then how that I combine them, how I create when I'm doing a reading, a one-on-one with a client, and how that can develop further, how the messages coming through. Maybe there is a sense for me also, it's like a doorway for me, an opening up. And so that when I actually start reading for a client, when I'm reading for a client in particular, more stuff starts to come through. It does become deeper. It does allow me to really feel as though the messages that are coming through are so much more. But this is the Epic Tarot, which is different, okay? It does sort of have its own thing, and the fact is the suits are different in some way. Well, like there's spheres instead of pentacles. Okay, so that's something that's different. Again, or instead of coins. Then you've got books and wands, books and pens for wands. So again, there is that difference. There is, you're looking at the essence in regards to like the Sphinx, the Phoenix, sorry, the Phoenix. You've got the unicorn. You have a griffin. I'm just trying to find a dragon. Phoenix. Dragon. So you can sort of see the difference between the griffin and the dragon there. So yeah, so there are those differences within the tarot deck. So with this, I found myself sort of, because of the names of the cards are different, I started to look more at the imagery and start to listen to the messages that are actually coming through, not just by my knowledge, but by what I actually see in that moment. So that for me is like an intuitive hit, is something sort of coming in, standing out for me in this moment. And and it might have absolutely nothing to do with the traditional meaning of the actual card in a Waite Smith, Tarot de Marseille, Thoth type basis, but yet the message is coming through really clearly. And this for me is when I look at this card here and I'm seeing hands reaching out towards each other. It's an open book, so it feels like you're opening up to reach towards another aspect of the situation. And I don't know where that came from, but maybe that might resonate with you in that moment. So it comes from looking at the imagery and sort of getting a message through that makes sense for the client in some way. You're not just saying, oh, this is what this card means, but you're saying, this is what I feel in this moment, and what the card could mean in this moment. So yeah, that for me, the Epic Tarot is definitely a deck that I use my intuition with in many ways. Another deck I find, I mean, I have many, this is just several decks that sort of spoke out to me when I was thinking about intuition, talking about sorry, something's just come up on my computer and I just need to close that down. I don't want to add a device. I don't know why that's shot up there. But definitely working with a deck that I feel is not just structured in Tarot de Marseille, Waite Smith, or Thoth, however you want to say it, but and not necessarily in their own system, but a deck that sort of speaks to you intuitively. It asks that you look within yourself, to look at the imagery, look at the colors, look at what the characters are doing, and not just make up your own story, of course, but create a message from that story. I think that's part of the intuition, and I find once I sort of started to do that, I find that when I'm reading with Tarot de Marseille style, Waite Smith orthoth decks, those other aspects start to come in as another layer within the reading. So that's for me is what intuition is all about, is about being able to look at the structured meanings of the readings and then adding another layer on top of that by looking at the imagery, the colours, the characters, what's going on, what's happening, how does it all tie in together. Maybe a word or something just gets, maybe it's an opening to, it's like a doorway or a portal to new thoughts, new perspectives. Maybe something that comes in that's not quite clearly seen within the actual imagery, but makes sense to the client or the querent in that moment. It sort of surprises you, and it's a little surprise with the reading. Something that might just hit that nail on the head that the client did not realize actually made sense. Now, I found a deck that works really, really well when I'm doing face-to-face readings for clients. This is a deck my son actually picks up quite a lot for readings, and that's the Starman Tarot. David De Angelis did an excellent job collaborating with David Bowie with a lot of these images, and they're just so busy and so much going on. You can't help but get drawn into the imagery and allowing yourself just to open up to messages so far beyond just the structured meaning. I mean, you can do fantastic readings, structured readings with the cards, with any deck, tarot deck you pick up. Of course, if you know the meanings of the cards and that's all you do, you can do fantastic readings. But I've found, for me personally, once I allow myself to really open up, there does seem to be another layer to readings that come through. And I find when I'm teaching or mentoring face to face with someone and I'm teaching them the structure of the readings, structures of the cards, that once they allow themselves to then open up further, the intuition starts to come in, the understanding of the cards develop further because of their own intuition. What stories the cards bring out within themselves. So it's quite exciting to look at. So I really found Esther's message, Mindful Tarot, when she started to talk about intuition and the structure and the decks that she uses to sort of develop her own intuition coming through, the abstract abilities coming through. Hence why, one minute, just give me a second. Okay, so now I want to discuss a little bit more in regards to the abstract decks that I sort of created over time for a reason. I started them as digital decks, working with the Orphalese tarot software. Okay, so then I created let's begin with the tarot deck that I actually began with, and that was the Bestest Art Tarot deck. Okay, this is what I started with, and as you can see, the cards are very abstract. So even with an understanding of tarot, which is super important to understand the basic, whether you use Rider-Waite-Smith type meanings or more of in regards to the minor arcana using the suits with the numerology aspects. Okay, so let's put these aside. So what you're looking at is when you're working with this deck, you're looking more about the colours as well. So you've got a basic understanding of what the cards mean for the suits. And then you've got colours coming in. You've got messages. You're opening yourself up to so much more that allows messages to come through in new ways. Maybe you just allow yourself to go into that moment with the cards. And I really find that happens with the deck in particular when I start working, especially with a client. When I start reading with it, I find myself going into new ways of delivering messages with this deck. Just something about the swirls and the whirlwind and the stuff going, the patterns. Everything just gives you another level to move through as you start sort of looking at the imagery, especially the major arcana. So at that time, I also created an oracle deck. Now the oracle deck does have keywords on them, which you can solely work with. And when I'm doing quick readings, that's all I do. But if I'm doing something in depth with a client, I start to look at the colours, the patterns, and start sort of allowing myself just to open up to what the client needs at this time and what comes through. And the readings that I've had with this has been incredible when I'm doing one-on-one with a client. Just allows me to really sort of open up to whatever the client needs in that moment. Really does that. Now another deck I created was the Sacred Fractal Tarot. Okay, and I know this is just a mini size. It's only available as a mini at this time. I haven't sort of enlarged it or anything like that. But anyway, what I found with this deck, again, it's got some basic, it's got the understanding of tarot. You know, you have that understanding, but it allows yourself with the minor arcana to just forget about the numbers, forget about the numbers, forget about the meanings of tarot. What draws you in? What is the color telling you? What do you feel in that moment? What do you see when you look at the cards? That's what I find this deck, if I'm reading for a client face to face and we're just in that moment, we're just in that space where it's just the client and myself, the querent and myself. It allows that intuition to just grow and develop in new possible ways because of the colors, the shapes, the imagery. What do I see? What stories do I seem to feel from within the imagery? And I think that comes from a real and I know it's abstract, and I know there's nothing sort of set in, but it's what do you see in that moment that relates to the card in some way, to your understanding of tarot. You know, how does it relate? How does it move forward? How does it develop? How does it seem to push the boundaries of tarot meanings in some way, tarot keywords, in your understanding of tarot? How does it push you further into new levels, new developments? So that's what I created. Now another deck that sort of helps with that intuitive. Now I've got several decks you'll find on Make playing cards. Okay, but one of them is the Nature Spirits Oracle. No set meanings, no guidebook. It's just for you to take that image and see what you see. You know, what do you see when I shift the cards from one angle to another? You know, look at the cards differently. How do they feel when you turn them upside, turn them up the other way, or you turn them this way? I mean, you see different things all the time as you look at these cards and the way you lay them out. So I love this deck for just meditation, reflection, just allowing yourself to just look at the cards when you lay them out. What does the whole image seem to show you when you do several cards together? You know, lay them out. Let's just shuffle for a second. Just take a moment, take a breath, and think about your day. Think about being open to what the cards reveal for you. So let's just take a moment to just lay some cards out. Okay, we're just going to lay the cards out in a square, maybe. So you've got 3 cards across, 3 cards. I'm just going to lay them out. Oh, very strong, very purpley. Also green with being the nature spirits cards. Wow, it just feels very opening up your third eye. Feels very much about looking at the truth of the situation, connecting to the divine, opening your heart to new possibilities. Ooh, I just felt very tingly and very talking about this, what's going on for us in these cards. Wow, very strong messages of opening up. But take a moment and take a breath. How does that feel for you when you look at these images, these colours, and what's going on? Now you know there's lots of other colours. I say pulling out all the blues. Oranges could come through, lots of blues, red. So they could dominate the reading more so than the pinks and greens. So definitely feels very purpley, very much about opening up to the divine awareness. And I think that's what, talking about the intuition aspects, as well as sort of, so having an understanding of tarot is so important to develop your own intuition. I think that's what I'm sort of getting at. Now that's my own personal experience. You may disagree, and that's fine. Please be respectful when leaving comments down below, of course, with your own personal thoughts. That's it from me. Don't forget to check the link below. Check the links on your channel. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. Take care. And